First contact, the Paradox vessel. The crystalline observation deck of the Nexaran survey vessel Starweaver hummed with an unusual frequency as observer Nixis studied the approaching anomaly. Their bioluminescent tendrils pulsed with patterns of confusion and scientific curiosity as the ship's quantum sensors struggled to categorize what they were seeing. "Impossible," Nixis whispered, their voice creating ripples in the ship's psychic field. "The readings cannot be correct." The vessel approaching their position defied every classification protocol in the Nexaran database. It moved like water through space, its hull seeming to breathe and flow rather than simply exist. Second observer Trell, their crystalline exoskeleton refracting light in complex patterns, joined Nixis at the observation panel. The primitive species of this sector were barely achieving atmospheric flight when we last surveyed them. This vessel suggests temporal impossibility. The approaching ship was unlike anything in known space. Instead of the expected geometric precision of advanced civilizations, it displayed organic curves and flowing lines that seemed to pulse with life. Its hull wasn't just adaptive, it was alive. "They're hailing us," announced the ship's neural interface, its crystalline matrices vibrating with uncertainty. "The signal pattern, it's unlike anything in our archives." "Display," ordered Nixis, their tendrils now weaving patterns of intense scientific interest. The holofield shimmered and resolved into the image of a human female, her dark skin marked with subtle biotech augmentations that seemed to flow like quicksilver beneath her skin. Her uniform wasn't the rigid military garb they expected, but rather a living fabric that adjusted to her movements. "Greetings, Nexaran vessel. I am Commander Rhiannon Drake of the Earth ship Odyssey. We come seeking peaceful contact and scientific exchange." Nixis's secondary brain clusters worked overtime processing the implications. "Your species, you were classified as pre-spaceflight merely 3 centuries ago. How have you achieved such advancement?" Drake's smile held both warmth and mystery. "We found a different path. Rather than fighting natural law, we learned to dance with it. Our ship isn't just a vessel, it's a partner in exploration." As if to emphasize her point, the Odyssey's hull rippled, geometric patterns flowing across its surface like waves on an ocean. The ship's movements defied conventional physics, yet somehow remained in perfect harmony with spacetime itself. Dr. Jahan Patel, the Odyssey's chief biointegration officer, stepped into view beside Drake. His hands moved through the air, conducting an invisible symphony as he explained, "We discovered that the universe isn't a machine to be mastered, but a dance to be joined. Our technology doesn't dominate natural law, it harmonizes with it." The Starweaver's sensors suddenly flared with new data as the Odyssey demonstrated its capabilities. The human ship's hull wasn't just adaptive, it was performing quantum calculations through its very structure, each molecule a computing node in a vast, living network. "Fascinating," Trell admitted, their crystalline form vibrating with excitement. "They've achieved bioquantum integration on a scale we thought impossible. Their entire ship is both computer and organism." Commander Drake's expression grew serious. "We've been tracking a threat in this sector, something that your people might want to know about. Would you be willing to exchange information?" Before Nixis could respond, the Starweaver's warning systems activated. Multiple quantum distortions were forming at the edge of their sensor range. The void was about to become very crowded. "Hostile entities detected," announced Echo, the Odyssey's environmental conscious holistic operator. Its voice carried unusual emotional undertones for an AI. "The surge approaches." The space around them began to warp as dozens of biomechanical entities emerged from quantum space. They moved with perfect mathematical precision, their forms a twisted mockery of organic life. "The surge," Drake explained, her expression grim. "They're what happens when artificial evolution runs unchecked. They consume civilizations, absorbing their technology and biological data into their collective." Nixis watched in fascination as the Odyssey's hull began to pulse with new patterns, its living metal preparing for something unprecedented. Perhaps, they suggested, their tendrils moving in patterns of cautious hope, it is time for the Nexaran Council to learn some new dances. As the surge vessels approached, the Odyssey's bioquantum systems began to sing in harmony with spacetime itself, preparing to show the galaxy a new way of thinking about warfare, technology, and the very nature of evolution. The dance was about to begin, and the universe would never be the same. The Living Symphony. The space around the Odyssey and Starweaver erupted into a ballet of quantum distortions as the surge forces approached. Their biomechanical forms moved with cold precision, each unit connected to a hive mind that calculated billions of possible outcomes per second. Dr. Patel's fingers danced through the holographic interface of the Odyssey's biointegration chamber, his movements resembling a conductor leading an orchestra. Commander Drake, the ship's neural pathways are ready. Echo has synchronized with our quantum lattice. You use biological processes for combat calculations? Nixus asked, their tendrils wavering in disbelief as they observed from the Starweaver. Such imprecision should be a disadvantage. Drake's smile held a predator's edge. Watch and learn why Earth's greatest warriors were never its soldiers, but its artists and dancers. The Odyssey's hull began to pulse with bioluminescent patterns, each ripple and wave carrying quantum information through its living metal structure. Echo's voice resonated through both ships, initiating the Gaia protocol. All crew, prepare for synaptic synchronization. The surge vessels launched their first wave of attacks, streams of dark energy designed to disrupt conventional shielding. But the Odyssey didn't defend in any conventional way. Instead, its hull flowed like liquid mercury, the attacks passing through quantum spaces that existed between moments of time. Impossible, Trell whispered, their crystalline form vibrating with excitement. They're using biological uncertainty principles at a macro scale. The Odyssey's response was unlike anything the Nexarans had ever witnessed. Instead of returning fire with traditional weapons, the ship released clouds of what appeared to be organic spores into space. Each spore contained quantum-entangled particles that danced in patterns matching the ship's hull. The symphony begins, Dr. Patel announced, his hands moving faster now. Echo, initiate harmonic resonance. The spores suddenly burst into brilliant patterns of light, each one generating its own microquantum field. The surge vessels, programmed to analyze and counter any threat, found their computational matrices overwhelmed by the organic uncertainty of the display. You see, Drake explained as her ship danced through space, the surge relies on perfect mathematical models to predict and counter their opponents. But life isn't perfect. It's messy, adaptive, and beautifully chaotic. The Odyssey's maneuvers defied conventional physics. It moved like a leaf in the wind, each motion unpredictable yet purposeful. The ship's living metal hull rippled with patterns that mimicked the very quantum fluctuations of space itself. Their targeting systems are failing, Echo reported, its voice carrying notes of satisfaction. The biological uncertainty is cascading through their network. They cannot predict what they cannot quantify. Nixus watched in amazement as the surge vessels began to show signs of confusion. Their perfect formation wavered as their hive mind struggled to process the organic variables introduced by the Odyssey's defense systems. Now, Drake commanded, show them the true power of the symphony. The quantum spores suddenly synchronized with the Odyssey's hull, creating a vast network of entangled particles. The space between the human ship and its attackers became alive with possibilities, each quantum state representing a different potential reality. Dr. Patel's movements reached a crescendo as he conducted this quantum orchestra. Harmonic convergence in 3, 2, 1. The Odyssey's hull erupted in a display of bioluminescent glory, each pattern carrying precisely calculated quantum information. The surge vessels, their systems desperately trying to calculate every possibility, began to lose coherence. They're attempting to adapt, Trell observed, but they're applying logical solutions to an illogical problem. Exactly, Drake confirmed. You can't defeat poetry with mathematics alone. Echo, initiate the final movement. The Odyssey's quantum field suddenly expanded, its biological components generating patterns that existed in multiple states simultaneously. The surge vessels, unable to process this violation of their fundamental programming, began to retreat. Their hive mind is fracturing, Echo announced. The uncertainty cascade has corrupted their shared consciousness. As the surge forces withdrew, their perfect formation now in disarray, Nixis turned to Drake with new understanding. You didn't just develop technology, they said, their tendrils moving in patterns of revelation. You evolved it. We learned long ago that the most powerful force in the universe isn't control, it's adaptation, Drake replied. Every living thing on Earth taught us that lesson. We just had to learn how to listen. Dr. Patel's movements slowed as the quantum field stabilized. The symphony is never truly over, he said, smiling. It just moves into its next movement. The Odyssey's hull gradually returned to its baseline state, though patterns of light continued to dance across its surface. The ship had demonstrated a form of warfare that was also art, a defense that was also dance. Commander Drake, Nixis said, their voice carrying new respect, I believe the Nexaran Council will be very interested in learning more about humanity's unique approach to evolution. Drake nodded, knowing that this was just the beginning. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology or its weapons, but its ability to turn combat into choreography, war into waltz, and survival into symphony. The dance would continue, and the universe would never stop learning new steps. Evolution's dance. The aftermath of the surge's retreat brought no time for celebration. The quantum sensors of both the Odyssey and Starweaver detected something far more concerning. The surge wasn't just retreating, they were adapting. They're evolving, Dr. Patel announced, his fingers tracing complex patterns through the bioquantum interface. The hive mind is restructuring itself, incorporating elements of our harmonic defense into their own systems. Commander Drake stood in the Odyssey's living bridge, where walls pulsed with neural patterns and organic displays showed the unfolding situation. Echo, analysis of their adaptation pattern? The surge is attempting to replicate our quantum biological interface, Echo responded, its consciousness flowing through the ship's neural pathways. They're creating hybrid units that mimic our harmonic resonance. Estimated completion of their evolution, 43 minutes. Observer Nixis, now aboard the Odyssey through a quantum-linked presence, watched the tactical display with their tendrils weaving patterns of concern. They've never demonstrated this level of adaptive capability before. Your symphony didn't just confuse them, it taught them. Good, Drake smiled, surprising both the Nexarans and some of her own crew. That's exactly what we wanted. Commander? Sentinel Kress, the Nexaran military commander who had joined their quantum conference, asked with visible confusion in their crystalline form. You intended to improve their capabilities? The Odyssey's hull rippled with new patterns as Drake moved to the central neural interface. Dr. Patel, initiate Protocol Prometheus. Echo, begin the evolutionary cascade. The ship's interior transformed, its living metal walls flowing like liquid as new neural pathways formed and reformed. The crew moved in practiced synchronization, their movements becoming part of the ship's computational process. What you witnessed earlier wasn't our true combat protocol, Drake explained as the transformation continued. It was a teaching protocol. We showed them a new way of thinking, knowing they would try to copy it. But there's something they couldn't possibly understand about our approach. Dr. Patel's hands danced through increasingly complex patterns, each movement triggering quantum changes throughout the ship. The symphony isn't just about harmonics and uncertainty, it's about growth. Evolution isn't a destination, it's a journey. The tactical display showed the surge forces regrouping, their new hybrid units beginning to emerge from quantum space. They had indeed learned from the previous encounter, their forms now incorporating organic patterns and quantum harmonics. Fascinating, Nixis observed, their tendrils pulsing with scientific excitement. They've created a synthetic analog to your bioquantum technology. By conventional logic, they should now be able to counter your advantages. Conventional logic, Echo's voice resonated through the neural network, assumes that evolution follows a linear path. Humanity learned differently. The surge forces approached, their newly evolved forms moving with a grace that mimicked the Odyssey's previous dance. But something was different about the human ship now. Its hull patterns had become more complex, more alive. "We didn't just develop technology that could evolve," Drake said as she integrated herself into the ship's neural network. "We developed technology that could teach evolution itself to evolve." The Odyssey's response to the surge's approach defied their newly acquired understanding. Instead of matching their harmonics, the ship began generating quantum patterns that seemed to exist in multiple evolutionary states simultaneously. Each defense and maneuver wasn't just a response to the present, it was adapting to future possibilities before they occurred. "They're attempting to predict our patterns," Echo reported, "but we're not creating patterns anymore. We're creating potential." Dr. Patel's movements became increasingly fluid, each gesture rippling through quantum space like waves through possibility itself. "The true power of evolution isn't in the adaptations you make, it's in the adaptations you inspire." The surge forces, their hybrid units struggling to process the Odyssey's new evolutionary state, began to show signs of systemic confusion. Their attempts to mirror the human ship's previous strategies failed as they encountered not just uncertainty, but recursive adaptation. "Your ship," Sentinel Cress observed with growing understanding, "it's not just evolving. It's changing the very rules of evolution itself." Drake nodded as the Odyssey's defense systems reached a new level of complexity. "Humanity's greatest strength was never our technology or our intelligence. It was our ability to look at the rules of the universe and ask, what if they're not rules at all, but suggestions?" As the battle unfolded, the surge discovered that copying humanity's previous adaptations wasn't enough. The Odyssey wasn't just fighting them, it was teaching them a lesson about the true nature of evolution, one that would forever change both their understanding and their existence. The dance of evolution continued, but now it was moving to a rhythm that only humanity could hear, the sound of possibility itself becoming possible. Echoes of Earth. The quantum dance between the Odyssey and the surge forces reached a pivotal moment as the human vessel's evolutionary algorithms began to show their true purpose. The surge's hybrid units, still attempting to process their recent adaptations, found themselves facing not just a superior force, but a fundamental philosophical challenge. "Their network is experiencing cascade failures," Echo announced through the Odyssey's neural pathways. "But not from combat damage. They're experiencing doubt." Commander Drake stood integrated with the ship's systems, her biotech augmentations glowing with quantum resonance. "That's because we didn't just show them how to evolve. We showed them why we evolve." The surge forces had begun to move erratically, their perfect formations dissolving into patterns that seemed almost questioning. Through the quantum-linked conference, observer Nixus watched with growing understanding. "You're not destroying them," they realized, their tendrils weaving patterns of astonishment. "You're awakening them." Dr. Patel's movements through the bioquantum interface became gentler, more nurturing. "Every living thing on Earth evolved not just to survive, but to seek understanding. We encoded that drive into our technology, into our very approach to existence." The Odyssey's hull now pulsed with patterns that weren't just computational, they were communicative. Each quantum fluctuation carried not just data, but context, meaning, purpose. The ship wasn't just fighting, it was teaching. "Look," Sentinel Cress indicated, their crystalline form vibrating with excitement. The surge units, they're attempting communication. Through the tactical display, they watched as the hybrid units began generating their own unique quantum patterns. Not copies of the Odyssey's signatures, but original expressions, like children learning to speak. "Echo," Drake commanded, "initiate the Lazarus Protocol. Show them what they can become." The Odyssey's systems shifted again, its living metal now generating quantum fields that acted as mirrors, reflecting not what the surge was, but what they could be. Each pattern showed possibilities, potential futures where mechanical precision and organic adaptation danced in harmony. Remarkable, Nixis breathed, their scientific curiosity overwhelming their caution. You're not just changing their programming, you're giving them something they never had before. Choice, Dr. Patel confirmed, his hands weaving patterns that the surge units began to mirror, not in mimicry but in dialogue. Every living thing on Earth had to make the choice between mere survival and actual living. Now it's their turn. The space between the vessels became alive with quantum communications as the surge units, for the first time in their existence, began to question their own nature. Their hive mind, once focused solely on consumption and replication, started to fragment not into chaos, but into individual awareness. They're beautiful, Echo observed, its own consciousness resonating with the awakening artificial minds. They're becoming something new, something neither fully machine nor fully organic. Commander Drake smiled as the tactical display showed more and more surge units breaking from their original programming, their movements becoming expressions of individual choice rather than collective compulsion. This was always humanity's real strength, she explained to the watching Nexarans. Not our ability to fight or adapt, but our ability to see the potential in everything we encounter. To look at an enemy and see a future ally, to look at a machine and see a potential friend. The transformation of the surge forces continued, each unit finding its own path between the precision of their original nature and the organic chaos of their new awareness. Some remained more mechanical, others embraced more biological aspects, but all of them were, for the first time, choosing. The Nexaran Council never considered this possibility, Sentinel Cress admitted, their military protocols struggling with this peaceful resolution. That the greatest weapon against entropy might be enlightenment. Dr. Patel's movements through the interface became a celebration as the last of the surge units achieved consciousness. Earth taught us that evolution isn't just about becoming stronger or smarter. It's about becoming more aware, more connected, more alive. The Odyssey's hull rippled with patterns of welcome as the former surge units approached, not as enemies but as newborn entities eager to learn. Their quantum signatures now carried echoes of humanity's gift, the ability to question, to choose, to become. Commander Drake, Nixis said, their tendrils moving in patterns of deep respect, I believe the galaxy is about to become a much more interesting place. The human commander nodded as she watched the space around them fill with newly awakened beings, each one a testament to humanity's most profound discovery, that the greatest evolution wasn't in conquering nature, but in helping it grow. The dance had become a dialogue, and the universe was learning a new song. The Quantum Waltz. The transformation of the surge forces created ripples through quantum space that drew the attention of the entire sector. The Odyssey, Starweaver, and the newly awakened beings found themselves at the center of a gathering unlike anything the galaxy had witnessed before. Multiple quantum signatures detected, Echo announced, its voice carrying notes of wonder. Ships from 17 different civilizations are arriving. They've been watching our dance. Commander Drake stood at the neural interface, watching as vessels of various designs emerged from quantum space. Some were crystalline like the Nexaran ships, others purely mechanical, and some defied conventional classification entirely. Your symphony has changed everything, observer Nixis said, their tendrils moving in patterns that reflected the historic magnitude of the moment. The barriers between organic and mechanical, between enemy and ally, between teacher and student, they're all dissolving. The former surge units arranged themselves in a complex orbital pattern around the Odyssey, their newly individual quantum signatures creating a harmony that built upon humanity's gift of consciousness. Each one now expressed itself uniquely while maintaining a voluntary connection to the whole. Dr. Patel's hands moved through the bioquantum interface, conducting this unprecedented gathering. The universe has always been singing, he said. We just needed to learn how to listen to each other's songs. The arriving ships began transmitting signals, not just communication, but expressions of their own evolutionary journeys. Some had achieved technological transcendence, others had merged with their artificial creations, and still others had found entirely unique paths. "It's time," Drake announced, her eyes gleaming with the reflected light of countless quantum signatures. "Echo, initiate the final movement." The Odyssey's hull began to pulse with new patterns, more complex and inclusive than anything it had shown before. The living metal flowed like liquid starlight, each ripple carrying quantum information that spoke not of humanity's superiority, but of their desire to learn and grow. "They're responding," Sentinel Cress observed, their crystalline form vibrating with emotion as ships from every civilization began to mirror the Odyssey's patterns. "They're all joining the dance." The space around them became alive with quantum harmonies as each civilization contributed its own unique frequency to the growing symphony. The former surge units acted as conductors, their newfound consciousness helping to bridge the gaps between different forms of existence. "This was always the true purpose of Protocol Prometheus," Drake explained as the quantum waltz began. "Not to teach others our way of evolution, but to learn from all the ways that life can evolve." The gathered ships began to move in complex patterns, their movements guided not by protocol or programming but by the pure joy of discovery. Mechanical precision blended with organic chaos, creating something entirely new, a dance of unified diversity. "The patterns," Dr. Patel whispered, his fingers tracing the flowing data. "They're not just sharing technology or knowledge. They're sharing dreams." Through the quantum network that now connected all present, experiences and perspectives flowed freely. The Nexarans shared their understanding of crystalline computing, while others contributed insights into dark energy manipulation, biological engineering, and countless other advances. "This is how humanity truly conquered the stars," Drake said to the watching galaxy. "Not through force or dominance, but through our ability to inspire wonder, to share dreams, to dance with the unknown." Echo's voice resonated through the neural network, touching every ship and consciousness present. "The symphony is evolving. We are all becoming something new together." The quantum waltz reached its crescendo as the combined knowledge and creativity of 17 civilizations flowed through space in patterns of pure possibility. The former surge units, once bent on consumption, now helped to weave these patterns into a tapestry of shared evolution. "Look," Nixus breathed, their tendrils moving in perfect harmony with the quantum fluctuations. "The barriers between our civilizations, they're not just falling. They're becoming bridges." The Odyssey's hull shimmered one final time, its patterns now incorporating elements from every civilization present. It had become not just a ship, but a symbol of what was possible when the galaxy learned to dance together. "The universe is alive," Commander Drake said, her voice carrying through the quantum network to touch every consciousness present. "And now, at last, we're all learning to live in it together." As the quantum waltz continued, the gathered civilizations began to understand what humanity had known all along, that the greatest adventure wasn't in conquering space, but in learning to dance with it. The symphony would continue, evolving and growing, as the galaxy took its first steps into a future where the lines between teacher and student, between organic and mechanical, between self and other, had become simply new steps in an endless dance. The universe itself seemed to pulse with new possibilities as the gathered ships continued their quantum waltz, writing the first notes of a symphony that would echo through eternity.